Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Brotato, a roguelite arena shooter. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Blobfish, Brotato released to Steam in early access in September of 2022. The title had previously been available on PC since May of 2022, but its Steam early access release brought it to a much wider audience. So this is a title that I wholeheartedly recommend. It's very fun and the value is insane for the $5 you pay for the game. Do keep in mind it is early access, so it's expected to change, but that could only be for the best with this type of a game. With all that said, let's dive into the game so I can show you it rather than just explain things. So here we find ourselves at the main menu. When you select start, we're taken to what's really the meat and potatoes of this game. So you've got a character select here, and once you've unlocked all the characters, there'll be 30 characters in the game at this point. Keep in mind this is early access, so likely this is one of those areas that you might see additional improvement. The developer's also looking to add in more game balance, additional game modes, that sort of thing. But for right now, I feel like there's a lot of value here. So you start with just the one potato, well-rounded. So you're playing this character Brotato, which is this potato with 6 arms. You can equip up to 6 weapons. Pretty awesome. But all these other characters are different, basically versions of Brotato that have all these unique abilities. So you have all these stats that you can build a character with, and these characters will have different stat modifiers as well as certain other special abilities, like say the ranger here, for example. Like he starts with a pistol and all range modifications are increased by 33%, so he's has very like a or rather he specializes quite heavily in range damage. But, of course, for showing off the game, we'll go with well-rounded. Once you select your character, you're taken to your weapon select. And this will be very dependent on which character you choose. So, you've got the choice of melee weapons as well as ranged weapons. And just to start the game, we'll go with kind of the default pistol. You could always randomize it just to see what you get. And then you have your difficulty selection. Initially, you'll just have difficulty 0, but once you've cleared the game once, you'll unlock difficulty 1, and then it goes all the way up through difficulty 5. And the difficulty adds in additional like enemies, and then there'll be other modifiers that happen later. At this point, this is the only difficulty I've gotten to, so let's keep that in mind. But we'll be showing the game off in base difficulty 0, or danger 0 rather. So this is Brotato. The game itself behaves like a lot of those auto battlers where your primary objective for on your end is moving the character around. So the weapon is auto fire on a cooldown, and the aiming is also auto aiming. But one thing I do like about Brotato is it gives you the option to set the aim to manual. So if you want to like aim your weapons at like a more traditional twin stick, you have that option. Definitely like really appreciated. When you complete the level, if you've leveled up, you have an experience bar up there in the top left next to your life bar. Then you can select one of 4 abilities, or you can also have the option to re-roll. As far as the way to build your character, really, I don't think there's any one wrong way to do it. It depends on how you want to go with this run. Initially, one of the ones I do like is attack speed, so you can get more DPS by attacking faster, so we'll choose attack speed. Then we're taken to this shop, and here's where a lot of the fun in the game is. The game is full of tons of items, and using those items you can craft a really specific fun run. So in this case we could do something like buy another pistol. We could also pick up some shuriken, and we still have enough money that we can pick up this lens, which will give us +1 range damage, -5 range. And you can see all our stats on the right side. So I'm using a controller, so you can use that to move around the screen, but if you're using mouse and keyboard, you can use your mouse to hover over things and see what all the various stats do. So like max HP totally makes sense. But the HP regen, so you will regen life every so often based off of how high that is. You also have things like damage, so the higher this percentage is, the more damage will do, attack speed, range, and things like luck and harvesting. Harvesting is pretty important as it will give you additional experience and materials at the end of the game. So once you're done with the shop, you can hit go and we'll be back in the field. So we're fighting these aliens as Brotato. We've crash landed on this planet and we're trying to survive long enough to wait for our comrades to come and rescue us. That's the basic story of the game. I'm not sure, that being the case, I'm not sure who's really running the shop that Brotato's buying all this stuff from, but So, as the enemies are defeated, they drop those green items that are materials. You pick those up, and those are both your currency as well as your experience. However, if you don't pick up everything on the stage, then when the wave clears, and you can see there's a wave sign in the middle of the screen, and under that is your timer, when the wave is up, anything you didn't pick up is converted into that money bag, and that will act as a multiplier, basically giving you ×2 for that many pickups on the next wave. So in this case, we're kind of have a more of a ranged build, so I'm not sure we want to go melee yet, but it is a tier 2 upgrade, so there's also that. So actually, I guess we will go with the melee. Once again, we've got another set of options here. Unfortunately, some of the same stuff we've seen before, so I'm going to grab another pistol, and you'll see why here in just a moment, and then re-roll the shop. We have some other fun weapons here, so we can have trees spawn more often. That's what we'll go with. And if there's items you still want, but you don't have the money for, you can actually lock those, and those will be available in the shop the next time you come back. In addition to that, so if we have 2 weapons of the same tier, so 2 pistols that are tier 1, we can combine them together, and suddenly we have a tier 2 pistol, which is significantly improved over the original tier 1. Back to the game, and you can see, so some of the upgrades we've picked up have actually caused Brotato's appearance to change. So the item I picked up to give us more trees caused him to have an awesome green fro, and like as you apply more and more items, you kind of just change his look, and it gets pretty awesome. So the trees are actually very important. They'll drop alien fruit, which can help heal you, and they also will sometimes contain crates, which will give you an item found, like here. So at the end of the stage with the items found, you can either keep the item or you can recycle it for additional materials. So in this case, I'll just go ahead and keep this. There's no negatives on this item whatsoever. It's just a positive. And with what's here, it's a tough decision. I could go with +2 range damage, which will basically just increase the damage of ranged weapons, or I can go for the flat 8% damage increase. I'm going to go with triceps. I think it's actually a lot of fun that the upgrades are associated with different body parts. For one thing, Brotato is just kind of like this egg shape. So it's a little bit bizarre that way. And then like thinking it's like, oh, so the damage comes from the tricep. I gotcha. Then like your HP regen comes from the legs, or rather speed is legs. But your back is your dodge, your range is your eyes, just things like that. It's fun to think through those type of upgrades. So I'm gonna pick the Ghost Scepter. This one's a really awesome weapon. The ethereal weapons have like abilities on them where if you kill enough enemies with them in wave, they'll give you permanent stat increases. So if you do a build solely with those, it can be pretty powerful, but it's hard to get the ball rolling on that one. And then we'll also take this alien worm to give us max HP and some HP regen, but it does decrease the amount that those alien fruit I was talking about heal. And that's the core gameplay loop. This will basically continue until you hit wave 20, at which point you get boss. So these waves are still pretty basic, but as we go, you'll start to see enemies that are firing at you, enemies that charge at you, some large enemies that are tankier, and if you're playing on higher difficulties as well, you'll start to see other things such as enemies that aren't on like Danger 0 as an example. As far as like the minus flavors, some of the minor complaints that I've had about this one. So admittedly, from a color palette, it's kind of bland. Your background is going to be from like gray or brownish, and the enemies themselves are all kind of like shades of purple. So I would have liked if there was a little bit more variety there. There's a little bit of issue when you have a ton of items where sometimes if you get your cursor, at least with a controller, in the wrong spot, it's hard to get over to go, to move on to your next wave. And then when you take damage, there's not a lot of clear indicators as to whether you actually have taken damage until you're low life, at which point the screen starts to darken. I'm going to grab this laser turret, which is just randomly placed out on the field at the beginning of the stage, just because it's awesome, and we'll move on from there. There's also some other neat features in the options, so I'm going to pop in there real quick. So there is some accessibility options here. When you're actually in the game itself, you can only adjust the font, but if you want, you can actually, there are some sliders to adjust the enemy difficulty and damage, that sort of thing, making it basically more accessible and easier for others. You can play with just a mouse if you so desire, but I was going to turn on the manual aim so you can kind of see how that works, how it turns it into more of a twin stick. So you can see that now I'm actually controlling the direction my weapons are facing rather than them just auto-firing. And so I do appreciate that that's an option in here. So as far as the plus flavors are concerned, I really love just the variety in these kind of roguelites where you can take a character, set out with a particular build in mind, and just have fun with a run that might last like 10, 15, 20 minutes, and your like Brotato will start to look really unique throughout the course of the run. You'll like get all these different unique weapons, all the way up to, as I was like saying, the 8 weapons that you can get, and you'll have all these awesome like stats. So sometimes you might have a run that's like really powerful on dodge, so the enemies can't touch you, or you'll be healing so fast that even if you do take damage, it's inconsequential. I really, really love that. And there's a lot of the future. We'll just go with the full 6 weapons so you can kind of see like how it looks when like Brotato's like fully like decked out. The game itself has an incredible value, and with it being an early access title, it does feel very complete already, but there's definitely room for more content, and the developer has like stated that that's why the game is in early access, is they still want to work on it and add more to the game itself. So with that said, once again, Brotato is a hearty recommend from the chef. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us this week. I hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we'll see you again next time.